public can attend tonight's meeting in person at the George DeCierro City and County Buildings Council Chambers located at 1 Tacoma Drive, or watch live on Channel 8 and through live streaming on Broomfield's website, broomfield.org/live. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you'd like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 participants have 2 minutes. And if time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1.5 minutes to speak. If joining in person, we'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and you'll have the time allotted as we said earlier. Before we begin this evening's agenda, we also wanted to remind council and the public that a study session will immediately commence following this meeting. So the City Council regular meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Hinkle. Here. Jaworski. Leslie.
He is here. He just stepped out.
Lim. Here. Lindstedt.
Here.
Marshallson.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
Ward.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you. A quorum is present and Councilmember Leslie has just entered the meeting. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, with liberty and justice for all. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time on an item, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. We'll plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. And we'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to request that 11A be moved to the consent agenda.
Are there any objections to 11A being moved to consent? Then we'll move it to a consent. Thank you, Councilmember. There'll still be an opportunity to comment publicly on that item when we vote on the consent agenda. The first item this evening under petitions and communications is a proclamation declaring September 2022 as Workforce Development Month in the city and county of Broomfield. Will Mr. Casey and any other staff here to accept the proclamation, please come and meet Mayor Pro Tem Jaworski at the podium. I see Mr. Dewhurst is here as well. And many others. So will the representatives please introduce themselves?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Chris Dewhurst, and I'm the Division Manager of the Broomfield Workforce Center, and am thankful to be joined by some of your fabulous team from the Workforce Center tonight. So I will let them introduce themselves as well.
There'll be time for that.
Shelley Arnold, the admin tech there.
Linda Anderson in Business Services.
Linnell Munt, Workforce Supervisor.
I'm Sue Spriggs and I'm the greeter.
Hi, I'm Clelia McVeigh. I'm in Business Services.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of Council, Dan Casey, Director of Human Services. And I Second, the applause that our Workforce Center received. They are second to none. They do amazing work. If you ever have time, come over and look at our success wall. See all the different folks that we have helped get employment, all the businesses we've helped get employers for. And I won't take too much more of Chris's time and let him do his thing, but Workforce Center in Broomfield is amazing.
Well, I concur, and this proclamation recognizes that Broomfield's economy and prosperity are highly dependent on our current and future workforce. It emphasizes the importance of promoting skills and education attainment so Broomfielders are ready for the jobs of today and tomorrow. With emerging technology and the major shifts we've seen in the evolution of how and where we work, it is imperative that we provide our Broomfield employees and employers with the support and access to opportunities they need to succeed. The Broomfield Workforce Center provides a wide variety of no-cost workforce programs to support individuals on their path to employment and helps businesses find the talent they need. Our workforce development professionals, in partnership with many organizations throughout the Broomfield community, work tirelessly to deliver workforce solutions for businesses and individuals to meet the global challenges of tomorrow. Therefore, as mayor, I hereby declare and proclaim September 2022 as Workforce Development Month in the city and county of Broomfield, and invite all residents to use this month to recognize the contributions of workforce professionals and employees and participate in all of the events and initiatives that support job seekers and employers in the Broomfield community. We will take public comments if anyone would like to remark on this. And then comments and questions from council are next. Would anybody, Councilmember Hinkle?
You know it. Welcome, everyone. This is probably half your staff here. Is that right? You guys run a lean and mean show. And Chris, you know, I have really sung your praises and your group's praises. I might get emotional because what you do matters. Everywhere, you know, anywhere from where you have your greeter, Ms. Spriggs, who matches almost every day, right? That really matters. How you present yourself to those who are in need. We have people who have been unhoused and we got them, you know, their CDL licenses and they were able to drive and be employed. And I think there is a matter of like dignity in those conversations. And I've sat with our refugees in your rooms. And your caseworkers working with people who are trying to remember, they have no resume from the Ukraine. It could have been blown up. There are no universities that are recognized in Afghanistan anymore. So they have to remember everything that they've done. And there's an amount of loss that they have felt. And you guys help them regain who they are. And we know that we just introduced you to one of our new Ukrainian females who was a lawyer in the Ukraine, and she wants to reinvent herself. And that is very powerful. And I look forward to that conversation. I look forward to the amount of funding that you guys are asking for statewide, federally, and also hopefully locally, because our community really deserves people like you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, I just wanted to present the perspective where I'm assigned to the CRWC Workforce Development Board at a regional level. I wanted to present that the region obviously respects and admires the work of the Broomfield Workforce Center. That comes across in our meetings, and I just wanted to convey that appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other council member comments? Would you like to make any remarks, Mr. Dewhurst?
Well, I would. I'm very grateful and thankful for the comments and the support and this proclamation. This really is an opportunity for us to reach out into our community, create some awareness of what we have to offer, and really this team and the magic that they do on a daily basis working with individuals. We believe employment is a fundamental piece of the human experience. And so it's a blessing to be able to join somebody in that walk in their life. And so have a very talented team that work to live up to that mission on a daily basis. And I do want to recognize that the planning committee that has put together the events for this month has really knocked it out of the park, and just want to recognize them. And if council will indulge me just for a moment for them to highlight a couple of items that they've put together. And so Ms. Sue Spriggs, Clelia McVeigh, and Linda Anderson have been part of the planning committee, and we have close to 30, if not over 30 events planned throughout the month of September. So Clelia, would you come talk about a couple of them in just a quick minute?
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to check my cheat sheet here. So thank you for having us. We are very excited to be here. We're gonna start off the month with an open house, and it's a partner open house. We have, I think, 17 community partners. The Refuge, Thrive, Fish, A Precious Child. There's so many internal and external partners. So the ask would be to share this event with your resources, with all of your connections. After that, we have 30 plus events. Many are for job seekers, and it's really to get the word out to them that we're here and that we're here to support them. I'm going to take these off, sorry. These are Sue's glasses. They're not working for me right now. But the resources for the job seekers, it could be a resume, it could be mock interviews, digital skills. There's so many things that will really help these people looking for a job and securing stability. Then we have 7 workshops for employers. And it ranges anywhere from, why and how to hire older workers, hiring a vet. There's a number. And if I had my glasses, I could read them all. But and then we have 2 job fairs. We have one in conjunction with Adams County. And that one right now, we've got, I think, 16 employers. And then ours at the end of the month, we have, I believe, 18 employers. And we have consistently been filling those job fairs. So the employers really, really, really need our help. And so do the job seekers. But let me tell you, just briefly, we're going to do a few hiring events for the Sun staffing, and they've been fantastic, huge supporters. They actually hired one of our customers through the language line, which was exciting. That was exciting. That was about 6 weeks ago or so. We have digital skills, library resources, interview workshops, virtual do's and don'ts, which is key in this day and age. How to stand out during your interview, intuitive eating, work-life balance, Connecting Colorado, applicant tracking systems. I mean, it's across the board. So I could go on, and Chris probably knows this. But any
would you like to
questions?
shout out the website where people can get more information?
Sure.
Ms. McVeigh?
It's broomfieldworkforce.org. And so all the registration links will be on there. I'll leave some copies here. But we're excited. We're excited to share these resources. And like Chris said, we have an amazing team. Every day I'm blown away by our team. They're just super generous, super honest, good people. Any questions?
Any comments or questions from council? Councilmember Leslie?
Thank you and congratulations. I would love at the end of the month for some kind of a return and just let us know how it all went.
Sure.
I just think you've
Sure.
got such a great, agenda plan. So many people are going to be reached and touched, and companies as well. And I'd just love to hear.
Okay,
Would you mind?
that's great.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Just wanted to say just quickly, Mayor, if I may, so we, as we look at this group, these are the Quanah Fund. They really do keep us grounded and grateful for what we have and who we are. I think there's less than half of you here tonight. But again, it's the first time that we've ever really front loaded all of these events. Which you'll see more and more from each one of these departments, but I can tell you from a staff perspective, all you have to do is go walk through workforce and it fills your cup. So we are very grateful for each one of you, and Susan always sets the bar very high for matchy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shab.
I just have one brief question. So on the memo, it talked about that in the calendar, the Broomfield workforce submitted, 16,360 jobs to the Colorado State Jobs Database, which is a phenomenal amount of jobs that are coming out of this one workforce, let alone all the workforces around the state. So I'm curious because there's a lot of press about the private, job postings, websites that are out there. But this one seems like a great resource for a lot of people in our community. So is this the Connecting Colorado website? Is that where people would go to find these job postings?
Yes.
Perfect.
So all the jobs that we post out of our office, and we're very proud of this, and those 16,000 plus jobs that we've posted, they go into a database that gets shared statewide. But the unique thing about our system is that they are all screened by a human eye. And that would be Linda Anderson. And so, ultimately to ensure that they're not scams, that these are valid bona fide job opportunities that are not going to take advantage of somebody. So, but yes, connectingcolorado.com will get people to
Awesome.
that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I thank you all, the whole workforce team, for all that you do and you're going to do this month or next month, and for all the important services that you provide to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The next item under petitions and communications is a proclamation declaring August 31st, 2022 as Overdose Awareness Day in the city and county of Broomfield. I'll give a moment for the folks to exit. Well, Mr. Volling and any other staff, please come and meet Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski, which you already did. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. It's our pleasure to be in front of you tonight with this proclamation. And actually, this is the team that does the vast majority of the work. So all of the questions or comments you're going to direct to me tonight are going to go directly to them.
Well, welcome to all of you. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, good evening. I'm Sarah Mock and I'm our House Planning and Systems Manager in Public Health.
Good evening, Allison Long, and I am the Health Promotions Manager in Public Health.
Good evening, I'm Tracy Roberts and I'm the Community Health Improvement Coordinator in Public Health.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. This proclamation recognizes that overdose prevention is a major public health issue. Protecting the health and safety of its residents is Broomfield's highest responsibility, and it takes a collaborative effort to continue to identify strategies that lessen the impact of substance use on our community. Broomfield Public Health and Environment, the Police Department, Human Services, the municipal courts, and other key stakeholders continue to identify strategies that lessen the impact of substance use on our community, including the Mental Health Co-Responder Program, BCOR, the Communities That Care Coalition aimed at youth, and the newly formed Opioids Regional Council. Therefore, as mayor, I hereby declare and proclaim August 31st, 2022 as Overdose Awareness Day in the city and county of Broomfield, Colorado. And is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this item? Anyone on council have any comments or questions on this item? Would the representatives like to make any remarks?
It's always a treat to follow such a happy thing with a semi-sad thing. We want to recognize the people that have lost their lives, the family members that have lost loved ones. And we're very grateful for all of our community partnerships, but it would take me forever to list because they are so many. But as we've gone through the process of forming this opioids regional council and developing strategies, it's been incredibly rewarding, enlightening, emotional to have people who have in our community who have lost family members help us figure out what we should be doing next. And so there are 3 of them that are regularly with us, and it has been just a really important and growing experience for us to have them there and figure out where we should go next. And I think we're on the right track. It is amazing to see all of the work over the last 6 months with this group. 6 months is not a long time to figure out what to do next. And they're figuring it out and I love it. And it's amazing. So this is an awareness day and I am looking forward to so many more awareness days so that we can really actually make a difference and an impact in our community. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening and for raising awareness about this very important issue and for your efforts to keep our community safe and healthy. Thank you all. And before we begin our public comments section of the agenda, I'd like to introduce Olivia Rakert. She is Miss Teen Colorado and was born and raised in Broomfield. Ms. Rakert, would you please come to the podium and tell us a little about yourself and your platform?
Good evening, council members. I want to thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Liv Kenley, and I am United States of America's Teen Colorado. I have come here to introduce myself and my message. Fearlessly flawed is a term that I use for what I represent. My generation spends more time on social media than any generation prior. It is no coincidence that depression and suicide are also at an all-time high. All day long, teens see filtered and edited pictures that show us an unattainable perfection. Unfortunately, this also tells us that we are not good enough and we are completely flawed. I want to educate teens that we all have the same fears and what we think our flaws are actually are what make us uniquely beautiful. I have so many ideas on how I want to spread my message, such as speaking at schools about the dangers of social media and soon at a Broomfield Days booth where I will hand out locker magnets with beauty affirmations to our local teens. To do these things and more, I need to secure sponsorships. I'm looking for people in our community who see the value in my mission. If you know of any businesses who might benefit from exposure and could get on the board with Fearlessly Flawed, please send them my way. And of course, if you have any ideas on how I may serve our community, please let me know. I am honored to represent Broomfield and Colorado as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Liv, and thank you for being here tonight. And congratulations on your title. I love your message and your platform, and it's very timely. It's so wonderful to see someone so young and so passionate and so poised. How old are you?
I'm 13.
I know. Well, keep up the great work with your Fearlessly Flawed platform. It encompasses such an important message to all of us, and particularly our youth who need to have the courage to be their authentic selves like you are representing. Would you like to come up to the dais and we'll take a quick picture?
Sure.
I know this is not normal protocol. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to join me? You guys can like lead in or do like the team, what the teams do. We'll now continue with public comment. After all of that, this is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than those listed on the agenda. So if there's anyone who'd like to be heard, please come up to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and staff. My name's Steve Darris. I moved to Broomfield in 1996, 1035 Sage Street, Miramani Farms neighborhood, and raised our 3 kids all through Broomfield schools and enjoyed that area up until 2 years ago when we relocated to Anthem. My wife and I are nearing the twilight of our careers. She's a teacher in Adams 12. And we just wanted to stay in Broomfield. We purchased in Broomfield. We lived in Broomfield. We love Broomfield. I'm a member of Nativity Church. And recently, so 2 years ago, right before COVID, we bought a house in Anthem Reserve. And at the time of purchase from Epic, we thought we found the house that we were going to live in for the rest of our years. And hopefully that still be the case. But right now I'm being told by my neighbors and I'm being told by others that there's a water tank project, and it completely caught me off guard on the Hilltop Property Park. And when we purchased our house, our closing documents said, there's fracking under your house. I can deal with fracking. I'm a civil engineer. I'm okay with that. You also have some pipelines for water and oil and gas to go around our neighborhoods. I saw them install them when they put the Broomfield Trail right behind our property, large open space, beautiful. We face east to the open space, and I can deal with the pipelines. They also told us, hey, there's an Erie Airport. I know the Erie Airport. I'd like to see the planes come in. I don't have a problem with the Erie Airport. These are all disclosures that were made at the time of purchase with our title. What was not made at the time of our purchase was the fact that what was being told to us as the Outlook Park with a bench, the highest point in Broomfield, which I'm not too sure because I think the other 2 water tanks are pretty high here up on Miramani and Cole. That's what we thought it was going to be. So the city installs, or the developer installs for the city, per the city plan, the trail behind our house that connects the Broomfield Trail all the way up through. And they put a bench on top of Hilltop. And the bench is a view area. There's some rocks, there's landscaping, there's a trail. And me being a civil engineer, when I go up there in the evening and look over and see the mountains, I see all these stakes. And I'm like, wow, are they going to really build a really nice park up here? And lo and behold, it's not a park, it's water tanks. And so basically, with my time running out, I'd just like to say that we give that a lot of thought. And if properly we weren't informed as purchasers there that our properties may be impacted with the value, the council and staff and city engineer needs to really think about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in person? Please come on up to the podium.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Matt Farmer. Last 3 years we're new to Broomfield. Love the place. It's amazing. It's my first council meeting. So I just say, look, I extremely appreciate, people that do public service. Thank you guys for that. Echoing kind of the same sentiment. I think from a table stakes perspective, what you guys do is look out for the constituents, and we appreciate that. And, in this case, with something as massive as, this tank farm going in a neighborhood, taking away from open space, it doesn't feel like that's in the best interest of the constituents. We understand we all need water. We do. That is crucial. There's lots of things I know we need gasoline, et cetera, but we don't put a gas station in the middle of the neighborhood. We just implore that the council look for a place that's appropriate, for something like this, more industrial, et cetera, that does not just hinder, the destruction of the open space or somebody's neighborhood. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your time. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Tom Romanello. My wife and I retired in Broomfield, and we also live in the Anthem Reserve area. Much like the 2 men before me, we were not made aware of this type of project. As we became knowledgeable on it, we look back and this is well beyond the scope that anyone ever had imagined. We know we need water. We know the Broomfield is growing. I'll just echo the other comments and implore the council to please look for other alternatives. We did have a Zoom meeting back in June with the project manager for this project. We asked then if there were other sites that were explored. We were told yes. We said, what was wrong with those? We still have not gotten answers. So it would be good if we could finally get some answers on why the other sites that were not in residential neighborhoods were ruled out. And perhaps we could go back and look at those again to say, hey, we could make this work and not destroy this neighborhood and this open space that was, I think, beautifully put together by the developer. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? We have been getting a lot of emails about this as well. I want to turn to our city and county manager. Can you give us a timeline or when this is going to come up for the next?
Yes, thank you. The best site for updates, there's a whole host of Q&A with regards to the when, the what, the where, the why. Other sites, logistics, elevation is on broomfield.org. It's the Broomfield Voice page. I don't know if you all are familiar with that. Yes, affirmative head shaking, yes. So from a timing perspective, Miss Allen.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I just thought good time to get info out there. We have it.
Yeah, the Broomfield Voice it's a robust page with a tremendous amount of information on it. Miss Allen, what timeline?
Sure. Katie Allen, City and County Engineer. Thank you. So design just started. Council approved a design contract about 6 weeks ago, I think. And as a site development plan amendment, it'll be coming in for that, I believe, in end of September, October, and we expect that process to be about 7 months. And then design will be occurring simultaneously. So I think we probably have 12 months or so of design before it would be a construction project if approved.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Go ahead, come on up. I'll give you the podium.
My name is Angela Romanello, and I just have a few questions. I heard that the design will be worked on, but in the meantime, is anything going to be done to research and find possibly another location? You know, like everybody else said, we were not told that this was going to take place. This is not anything about, we're not against this because of aesthetics or because of curb appeal. It's truly a magical place up there. I mean, there's trails. There was money spent to put trails up there. There's a bench dedicated to somebody up there. I guess what I'm asking is, do we have any way of saying, can you look at this or can you look at that? Is this possible? Because it's our understanding that this is going to be for North Broomfield, which is basically for baseline. So what can happen in the meantime while this design is being done for us not to just go forward? It's kind of like I heard this is just moving forward. Right? You're in a design and then the construction will start, and then has other venues been vetted, and what are those? Can we get transparency to all that? We know about the Voice. We do know about that.
Well, Ms. Romanello, this isn't on the agenda and council hasn't been briefed. We are not involved in this project at this point. It's pre-council. So we don't have the answers, and we can get somebody to answer those for you, but it's not on today's agenda. We don't have that information.
Who would we work with?
Who should she work with, Ms. Hoffman?
Yes, I appreciate that. So if you go back to the Broomfield Voice, the alternative site analysis is on there. So we would highly recommend that. Really, that's the touch point. And we hear you. It is not a sense of railroading. And again, I don't want to make this part of the agenda, Mayor.
Well, no, we don't usually do a back and forth with public comment. It's kind of a one-sided thing, and I don't like that either, but I understand. We hear you, and but it's just not anything we can talk about right now.
Could I address one thing?
Oh, yes, Councilmember.
Just real quickly, because I've been on the council a year, so I'm new to this project as well. My understanding is this has been in development since 2015, when the work began to locate the water tanks at this spot. You were supposed to have been notified as homeowners, future homeowners. There was a notification requirement in the subdivision agreement that said notify future owners. They did not do that. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that. There's nothing in the code that penalizes or undoes that. I have asked council to develop language in the future. So when in future agreements, a notification requirement can be compulsory, or there's some penalty if they don't. So I am sorry that you weren't notified as you should have been as future landowners, that the city did take measures asking the developer to notify any future landowner of this project, and they failed to do so. Unfortunately, there's no remedy for that. So I just want to bring that up. And then I'm sure there'll be process in the future as this project develops for more comment and discussion.
Two public hearings.
And do we have dates yet?
No.
No. So we don't even have dates on the calendar, but you'll know. And there's more to come on this. I do appreciate your engagement because it matters. And I thank you all for coming down here. We do hear you, and we'll handle it when it's time. Thank you. I don't see any other public comment. So next we'll go to council, community, and event updates. Does any member of council have an update this evening? Councilmember Lim?
I wanted to thank Creative Broomfield for sponsoring Looking Back for a Vision Forward, Stories of Resilience that I attended on Saturday afternoon at the Broomfield Auditorium. There was a dynamic discussion about race and justice in our community, and it was led by Brandon Stepter, Jamaica Lewis, and Adrian Miller. And I appreciate very much the effort to bring that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. So this last week was a lot of airport business. We had our first subcommittee to look at the visual flight patterns and flight routes in and around the airports. So that will be something that we'll continue to look at a little bit closer. That's something that the airport has basically mentioned to the community noise roundtable, that this is one of those that has some ability to move this on. In part of that, in order to do that work fully and get kind of FAA, to bring it up to FAA approval, we have to have all the jurisdictions around us engaged in that conversation. And so thus, Westminster was one of the community, or was the community that dropped out about a month ago out of that community noise roundtable. So myself as the vice chair and the chair, as well as the airport and the Commissioner Kraft-Thart from Jefferson County, went to Westminster to ask them to rejoin as we need their voice in this ongoing communication. So I'll update you all with as those conversations continue.
Thank you. Any other council member updates or announcements? All right, moving on. Council's consideration of the consent agenda is next. The clerk will read all of the consent agenda items by title, and there'll be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 7A through 7H by title?
7A, approval of minutes from July 26, 2022 regular meeting. 7B, resolution number 2022-101, appointing arbitrators to conduct property valuation appeal hearings in accordance with section 2-66-80A of the Broomfield Municipal Code. 7C, resolution number 2022-109, authorizing and approving an agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Triple M Construction LLC for the industrial lane, bike lane, and sidewalk Phase 1 project. 7D, resolution number 2022-100, authorizing and approving a First Amendment of an intergovernmental agreement between the city and county of Broomfield and the Colorado Department of Transportation through the 2022 through 2025 Transportation Improvement Program for Industrial Lane Bikeway Phase 2. 7E, resolution number 2022-111, authorizing and approving a change order to the construction agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and RME Ltd LLC, doing business as Elite Surface Infrastructure for the Broadlands Lane reconstruction. 7F, ordinance number 2184, ratifying certain cooperation agreements and reimbursement agreements previously approved by the city council, first reading. 7G, resolution number 2022-117, authorizing and approving an agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Brothers Redevelopment, Inc. for housing rehabilitation services. 7H, resolution number 2022-120, authorizing and approving change order 1 to the construction agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Summit Construction Specialties, Inc. for the Broomfield Depot Museum Outbuilding Rehabilitation Project. 11A, ordinance number 2198, amending certain sections of Title 17 of the Broomfield Municipal Code related to gas station requirements, first reading.
Thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll now proceed with public comment, starting with in person. If anyone would like to be heard on these items, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Not everything. So everything is, if you want to comment on anything on the agenda, now's the time. Or the study session, just put it out there. Okay, no comments. Does any member of council have any comments on these agenda items? Councilmember Lim.
On ordinance number 2198 that was moved to the consent agenda, I agreed to do that, obviously. But I did want to call to my fellow council members' attention that I did ask some questions about that ordinance on first reading, and that there would be an administrative correction. And then I had a few questions that I actually wanted to hear a little comment on from my fellow council members, but I can do that one-on-one also before the second reading. Did staff have any response to the fact that I guess I questioned why the exception, if staff would be willing to comment on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim. To cover a few items, as you had noted, there is an administrative correction that staff had identified with your help as being needed in the fourth whereas statement, because the requirement for level 3 chargers was dropped from the ordinance after consulting with the ACES committee. And then you had requested or had asked a question of why was there an exception for 2 gas stations being located at the same intersection? Per the ordinance as drafted, 2 gas stations could be located within 1,000 feet of each other if they were located at a common intersection. Staff included that as an option for city council's consideration because it's pretty common for gas stations to be located at multiple sites at an intersection, since they can service different paths of travel for the motorists. If council did not believe that that was an appropriate exemption, it could be struck from the ordinance through an amendment.
Okay, thank you. That gives us food to think about until the second reading. Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
Well, thank you. And I have a question on that same ordinance on the gas stations. And there is, I'm looking for it right now, the comment, the inclusion there that any facility which just included electric charging stations would be considered a gas station. And I just want to make sure we're not doing something unintentional there, because if there's already gas stations on a street, and I don't know, will we really see a whole lot of, I foresee charging stations going on to other properties that are existing, but if there was to be a facility with just all charging stations, somewhere down in the future, that we, hard to visualize at this point in time, but they wouldn't be allowed to go on the same streets as existing gas stations. And is that something that as a few years down the road, we might just revisit? Is that the thought, as this all plays out? Because we'd be precluding, as we said, this transition to electric vehicles, we'd be precluding all electric vehicle charging stations.
Councilmember Anderson, thanks for the question. So for anyone listening, the proposed ordinance would classify for the purpose of zoning an electric vehicle charging station as a standalone use of a piece of property as similar to or compatible or the same as a gas station. And the reason that we were proposing that was to help to identify how they would be classified, because that is a new use for Brimfield, or will be when it's proposed. And a lot of Brimfield is in planned unit development districts. So they have very specific lists of uses in each PUD plan. So it would be a way to categorize electric vehicle charging stations as a primary use for those PUD plans, and also within the districts within Brimfield for other, for commercial districts and industrial districts. But you are correct, they would be classified the same as a gas station. And so there would be a separation requirement if at some point in the future we had a number of those types of uses. We do, as you mentioned, anticipate that more commonly we'll see electric vehicle charging stations as an accessory use rather than as the primary use. But council could consider an amendment to this ordinance in the future if that ever were to reach that level of number, and it was not meeting the intent of what city council envisioned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
All right, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, the same question, same line of questioning. Is the code going to distinguish between primary use and, accessory use for charging stations? Because we just passed an EV charging ordinance, so every development will hopefully have EV chargings going forward. And I know Flatirons Mall has several different charging stations within their parking lots. So how are we going to define that?
So it's pretty common for us to differentiate for individual users what's the primary use versus an accessory use. And we do clearly define in the accessory section what is intended with an accessory use. And the way that the definition was crafted in this case, we tried to make it very clear that in this case, electric vehicle charging station would have to be the primary use of that property in order for it to be considered a gas station. So in the case of Flatiron Crossing, those are clearly incidental to the primary use of the mall.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from City Council? All right, before asking for a motion, I want to remind everyone that item 7D is an intergovernmental agreement and requires 2/3 approval of council. Is there a motion by council that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for agenda items 7A through 7H be approved? Councilmember Shah.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. There is no business before the Board of Social Services or the Board of Health this evening. We moved 11A to the consent agenda, so we're just gonna breeze by that. And wow, we're already at the city and county attorney's report. Ms. Rogers, do you have a report?
I've never seen before 7 o'clock in my life.
I know.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The city and county manager's report is next. Ms. Hoffman, do you have a report?
I'm going to save it for the next council meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
no worries. Well, there is no legislative update or any business before the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority or the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors this evening. Additionally, there are no special reports or requests for future action. So that concludes the items on this evening's agenda. And I believe in my 5 years being on council, this is my record. Is there any other business to come before the council? There being no further business, this council meeting is adjourned. We'll take a 10-minute break, then start the study session, and then we do have to resume our executive session. So we're not done yet. Thank you.
The Access Live event has ended. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
Does Kelly know what's going on? And Mayor, I'll walk you through. Are we recording again, Jake? Mayor, could you reconvene the meeting, please? Are we? Jean? We'll talk. Yeah, Mayor, if we could get, it wasn't clear that the motion for 11A was included in that consent item motion. So if I may, could we get a motion to approve item 11A on the agenda, which was moved to consent? Just to make it clear that this was part of council's approval.
I move that item 11A be adopted,
Approved on first reading, sorry.
approved on first reading. I move that 11A be approved on first reading.
All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. There being no further business.
That's fine. Now the meeting can be adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That meeting is adjourned.
Well, and it was.
Good evening and welcome to this evening's study session of the City Council. Agendas for study sessions, including concept reviews, can be found by visiting Broomfield's website at broomfield.org. Our agenda this evening includes one study session item. Seeing there are no action items or concept reviews on the agenda this evening, there will not be any public comment. The study session will be televised on Channel 8 and through live video streaming on Broomfield's website. Our only item this evening is a discussion of offering healthcare benefits for elected officials. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, and I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Director of Human Resources, Nikki Macklin.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Nikki Macklin, Director of Human Resources. Council's asked staff to prepare information to inform your discussion regarding whether council would like to offer health benefits to elected officials based on the same premium contribution model as benefited employees. Currently, council has the option to elect to participate in the CCOB healthcare plans, but there is no premium contribution from the employer. This results in council members who elect this coverage to pay 100% of the premium expense. The City and County of Broomfield provides healthcare benefits with a portion of the premium paid by the city to employees who regularly work 20 hours a week. If the City and County of Broomfield provides elected officials with healthcare benefits under the same premium contribution model as benefited employees, council members would have two options to elect and modify current coverage. One would be the first of the month following the effective date of the ordinance approving the provision of healthcare coverage, or the other option would be during the annual open enrollment process immediately following the effective date of the ordinance, which is typically in January of each year. If council desires to provide elected officials with healthcare benefits on the same premium contribution model as benefited employees, staff can certainly prepare an ordinance amending Chapter 2-2 allowing for the benefit. A survey of Colorado municipalities was provided to council, and that is indicated on the screen here. Additional agencies have been added since the memo was originally drafted based on responses we have received since then. So with that, I will pause and open it up to council for any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Macklin. We'll start with Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you. Quick comment and question. I just wanted to sort of put this in context because I know there's a visceral reaction to this proposal and that's, that healthcare is as a perk, which is unfortunate, but that reflects healthcare in this country. That's unfortunately employer-based. But I wanted to just first put forward that it's actually compensation to my understanding, and that historically, if you allow me this tangent, President Roosevelt had the option of going with universal health care and Social Security. He wanted to do both, but he realized he couldn't do both, so he chose one, and he went with Social Security. During World War II, we had, this will sound familiar, lots of inflation, so there was wage controls, and people couldn't increase salaries of workers. And so the workaround from that was to provide healthcare as a compensation, additional compensation that wasn't a wage. And ever since then, to my understanding, healthcare insurance has been considered a compensation or part of your compensation, not an addition to. So I just want to say, when you're considering healthcare benefits, they should be considered as part of your overall compensation for your work and not an add-on or addition, to my understanding. But I did have a question in terms, because I'm really interested in equity. And I actually appreciate the research you did for me. My understanding of there are a little over 100 part-time employees in the city. Over half of those who are part-time do receive some sort of healthcare benefits, and that's 57 and 41 don't. What is the distinction? Why some of those part-time people have benefits and some don't?
Sure. So in order to be benefit eligible, part-time employees have to work at least 20 hours a week on a regular basis.
So the 57 you do are working not 100%, but more than 50%, if more than 0.5 FTE or less than one full FTE.
Okay.
Right. And it's my understanding legally we're required to provide healthcare to anybody who works more than 30 hours a week. It must be required. But beyond that, it's our option in terms of who we provide healthcare benefits to.
Correct.
So technically, we could decide that any employee gets healthcare benefits.
You can always be more generous than the law, correct?
I don't know if anybody does, or I'm not sure what the principle is, why part-time employees don't receive benefits. It's certainly a concern because more and more people are working part-time hours rather than having full-time jobs. More of a comment, I guess. So I don't know if it's ever been considered, because my understanding is city council members, as you answered, don't have an FTE classification.
That is
There isn't a distinction of hours. We're not considered 0.5, 0.6, 0.2.
That is
Correct.
correct. In the system, you're classified as council other.
Councilmember Hoffman, I mean, Councilmember Manager Hoffman, would you like to add something?
To Councilmember Cohen's question, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago when the conversation about part-time employees and having them be able to receive those same benefits at 20 hours. So it was it wasn't a heavy or lengthy decision, quite frankly. It was something that relying on those folks, and exactly to your point, that if they were working over 20 hours, I know that the majority of municipalities on certainly on that list from our neighbors do not offer benefits to anyone under 30 hours. So when Broomfield made that decision 3 years ago to offer it to 20 hours, it was for the same reasons, exactly what you're saying now was equity and equity and access.
Yeah, I don't know how 20 hours became sort of the general rule across the board. This whole suggestion made me wonder beyond city council, because I think our hours vary dramatically and they aren't tracked. So it's hard to say to what degree. I'm sure the mayor works almost full time. Council members put in a number of hours. Some of us have healthcare, some of us don't. So it raised to me the issue of should we consider, because I know we rely very heavily on some part-time employees are absolutely vital to the operation probably. And it's unfortunate that healthcare is employer-based or job-based, but is there any thoughts of what is an equitable amount of hours where it's economically makes sense to provide these kind of benefits?
I think that's exactly the reason that they that it was recommended to be 20 hours.
Which, to clarify, is more generous, like you said, than the law requires, right? So the Affordable Care Act requires that anyone working 30 or more hours, but Broomfield, in their attempt to level that equity playing field, attract and retain quality part-time employees, decided to offer that at the 20-hour minimum.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any other council member questions? Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question and then some comments on for legal. This is going to be considered compensation, correct? We enact it.
Yes.
So it would not go into would not go into effect until after an election, correct?
That's our advice.
Okay. That's what, so because the charter and the state constitution says that we cannot give ourselves a raise, then we would not get it until we were reelected or not elected. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
We cannot do this for ourselves.
Right.
It would only take effect for the next people that get elected.
I mean, I want to clarify. I mean, a lot of the emails we got, we're talking about, giving ourselves a raise, and that's not what we're doing. I brought this forward. I sponsored this because I happen to be fortunate enough to have a full-time job that's flexible, allows me to serve on council. And I actually have really good benefits, so I don't need this. But, the way we're set up right now, we are not a part-time council. I mean, we are officially a part-time council, but we're really not. So a lot of the emails we got talked about how part-time council, public service, and that's true. It is, it is public service. But the way it's set up right now with our low compensation and, no health benefits, it really is just the wealthy or the fortunate that can run for council. And oftentimes too many people cannot run for council. And so adding this benefit is just helps those that, single parent or somebody else who can't afford to not lose their benefits would allow them to run for council possibly in the future. So that's kind of the reason why I brought this forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember. Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have any questions on this agenda item. but I do want to make a few comments because I myself do not technically have any benefits through any of my employers. If you include my work on council, I have 3 jobs. With my primary job really being driving for RTD. I am classified as a part-time employee with RTD, partly because of my choice, because it allows me the flexibility to do this job. If I was classified as a full-time employee, I would not have the flexibility to attend council meetings, to interact with the public in the capacity that I can or would want to. And so because of that, because I really want to do this particular role and give back to the community that I live in, I have to be part-time, which means I don't receive the same benefits. As a part-time employee, RTD either doesn't subsidize or only partially subsidizes health insurance to about $500 a month would be my contribution. And my other part-time job, I don't work enough hours to qualify for their benefits. So I have to use the Affordable Care Act, and I still pay $275 a month for middle of the road coverage for health insurance. So I think those comments that we have been receiving in email about everything from we're just in it for ourselves, or you should just be doing this out of the kindness of your heart, are a little misguided. Because there are people in our community like myself who would have to make a trade-off like I have in order to be on council and not have that health insurance that some desperately need. I'm fortunate enough, I don't really need a whole lot of medical care, but that could always change. You never know. So I just wanted to throw that in for the public record.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hinkle?
Sure, thanks. And thanks, Nikki, and also City and County Manager Jennifer Hoffman for getting a lot of this information. This is really good to know and understand. I noticed on here, we have some of the least affluent places in Colorado on here and also the most affluent. And there's a lot of, things on here that says, same as employees. And I'm curious in the future, what they said that they did for their workforce or attracted also, for those people who are running for office. Because one of the worst things you can actually do for democracy is actually push people away. You really do want, and that's why I was actually really adamant about having that ranked choice voting. You really want the best of the best to come to the table, right? And not just 2 people, right? You want people who are the service industry in restaurants. And I will tell you, I am super thankful for Mr. Austin Ward being on city council because he is really a boots on the ground in our transportation system. And if we didn't have him on council, we wouldn't have that point of view, and particularly how young he is too. We have some of the youngest members on council here in Broomfield, and we want to attract diversity. That's the only way that you can get diversity of experience, diversity of thought, everything. So I'm actually thankful that people wrote in that said, hey, you guys are part-time. We are at least part-time. Thank you for recognizing that, actually. Because what that means is that we can only really have another part-time job. Either that's what that means or we're working overtime. So if someone is working 40 hours a week and we are at least part-time, we're working 60 hours a week. So what I want to tell you is if we're part-time, what is our other job going to do? Is that other job? I have a part-time job. Is that other job going to fill that, healthcare costs? If I'm a single mom, that tells me I can't run for office. And you've just ruined democracy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I think those are great comments so far, and I fully support this. This is something that what myself and the mayor have been pushing for a number of years. So happy to finally have it up here before us. Unfortunately, I will not be able to benefit from this, but I certainly hope that the people that follow me do get this opportunity. it was always my thought that we just wanted to make sure that the elected officials, had access to some quality healthcare. I mean, it was pretty simple. And I think that was a no-brainer for myself, and I think for the community. I can't imagine who unselfishly would have an issue with that. Again, it's not really, I know we're calling it compensation, but it's not compensation. It's just providing access to healthcare. And as you've heard, a number of my colleagues don't work full-time, or they can't work full-time because of this position. And as Councilmember Cohen mentioned, it's unfortunate that we have a mindset in our community that healthcare is tied to employment. And, because of that, it seems as though that this job doesn't necessarily make it easy to obtain, affordable healthcare. Like I say, right now, the way the system is set up for us in Broomfield, we can get healthcare through the city, but it is not cheap. And I think it's more expensive than, at least in my situation, more expensive than it would be just purchasing on the healthcare exchange. So I do hope that we're able to pass this and be able to provide some affordable healthcare to this, my colleagues, going forward in the years to come. So that's all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I agree, like being self-employed or being dependent on your spouse's plan, which some of us are as well, when those partners are laid off and there's no option but COBRA, and then you look to your other employer, which in my case is the city and county of Broomfield, and it's actually more expensive to pay for the entire amount for the city and county of Broomfield than it was to stay on COBRA. So I don't think it's a huge ask. And I think the part-time status, we need to revisit that classification from 2 decades ago, because we were a city half this size, and we don't just serve on municipal boards and commissions. We also serve on many county level boards and commissions. And we are sitting in rooms with full-time county commissioners that are paid well and provided a staff and all the other things. So we're thrust into these situations where we're representing the county as commissioners, but we're not getting paid. We do a lot of volunteer work that's never on the record because we want Broomfield to have a seat at the table. And many of us do that. So I think, again, for the future, I'm looking forward to when we do review our charter that has not aged well in some places, which we will be recruiting a new charter review citizen committee when we do our boards and commissions recruitment in January. And we'll start the process of modernizing this document that had things like the council members need to be served their meeting notices in person. That did not age well. That meant somebody had to drive to every one of our homes and give us a physical packet of information. Those types of things shouldn't be immortalized in a constitution. That should be flexible and future-proofed. So these are the kinds of things we'll be revisiting. We did remove that when I got the pronouns changed. So more to come on that. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question for you, Ms. Macklin. So part-time employees do receive benefits at the 20 level, 20 hours on average, and they're legally required to receive those healthcare benefits after 30 hours. Council is not classified as employees. So my question is, for employees, could the number of working hours on average be reduced below 20? Is there anything that prohibits us from doing that? Or is that 20 number some type of magic number?
The 20 number was a decision that the organization made. It certainly could be decreased. The 2 things that you would have to consider if you were to decrease the eligibility is the increased expense in terms of the number of employees that you were providing that benefit to, and the employer premium contribution, as well as we would have to amend our contract with our carriers to ensure that they would be willing to create that additional category of eligible members.
And if there were employees that were working fewer than those 20 hours per week on average, would they need to work that full year? Or could some, I know some employees that only work, 9 to 10 months out of the year. Would some of them be exempt from that because they aren't working the full year?
So we have a category, a temporary healthcare eligible employees who work 6 to 9 months out of the year that qualify for those benefits. The other caveat I will throw in there is based on your premium contribution, if an employee does not work enough hours in a pay period, it is very difficult to collect the premiums from them. So if their paycheck is not large enough to make the employee premium deduction, we have to have another means to go after those premiums. So that can become a bit of a logistical nightmare in that regard.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate all this information. I mean, it was enlightening to be reminded that our part-time employees in Broomfield are also taken care of, that they aren't second class, that we do provide healthcare benefits to them. I think that is a growing trend. I remember years ago when Starbucks announced that their part-time employees were going to be receiving healthcare benefits, and that was kind of a momentum shakeup for all the corporations out there. And so I think that, you know, for us to continue to be on par with that is important. And so, you know, I think that a lot of the emails we got were about you're all a part-time council and you shouldn't receive healthcare benefits. And I'm glad to be able to use this conversation to point out that our part-time employees with Broomfield do receive healthcare and employment or healthcare benefits, and how important that is.
It certainly helps to attract and retain that part-time employee classification.
Right. Thank you. So just a comment, Councilmember Marshall, thanks for bringing this forward, for staff, for all your work on this matter. I think that, you know, healthcare benefits through council would provide for the ability for more people to hold office. It would set up future councils and access to elected offices. And I think that is something that is important. But I think that this conversation for me is really something that highlights the nature of, you know, what is the best governance structure to serve the community of Broomfield? And is that part-time city council members as the charter is written? And I think that, you know, that as we've continued to grow, as the city and county has become more complex, I think that, you know, we ought to look at that and we need to investigate that to determine what is the best governance structure for us here in Broomfield. I think that, you know, when we start looking at, you know, the large budget that we pass on an annual basis, we look at all the local laws that are debated and passed in Broomfield, approving small and large contracts, deciding how land is used and developed. We're one of 64 counties. We are one of the larger cities here in Colorado, and we are, along with Denver, one of only 2 city and county governments. And I think that, you know, for me, sitting in rooms with other county commissioners and city council members, I understand how complex Broomfield is. If I was only able to kind of focus on just one of those entities, it would be much easier. It would be much more simplistic. But dealing with a city and county, there are many of those functions that sometimes operate in separation and sometimes operate together. And in those conversations, that does become more complex, and the ability to be able to be much more informed, be much more educated in those conversations is important. And we as elected officials do have a lot of power in those conversations and in those rooms. And my preference is to ensure that your Broomfield representatives are going into those conversations well-equipped and well-informed so that we can bring the best to the results for our community as well as for the state. So my hope is that, you know, that if this continues to move forward, that I also think that we need to have a much bigger conversation about how our governance structure best serves this community of Broomfield. And so I guess that's my last question is, the mayor kind of talked about this. Do we have that conversation started? You know, what could that conversation look like if it hasn't been started?
Councilmember Schaff, it has not been started. And that really is going to be generated from council. I think perhaps one of the charges, now that we have solidified that we're going to have the charter amendment, citizen
Review.
charter review.
For now.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a good fit for that group, particularly because of the composition of that group. Will be city council and community members, and really kind of setting what those priorities, what it looks like as you move forward.
Great, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Hoffman. And any of these charter amendments would of course have to go on the ballot for voter approval. So this will be just a kind of a planning group to decide what the best way to get this modernized and get some things on the ballot, but everything must be approved by the voters. Councilmember Marsh Holston.
Thanks, Mayor. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to go.
Oh, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Cohen.
I
You're
just
both
wanted-
second round, but
quickly, I just wanted to clarify that if we move this forward, that we look at flexibility in terms of part-time employees receiving health benefits. That in my place of work, I have people who work 0.5 FTE or 20 hours a week just to get the benefits. They really would be fine with 15 hours a week to do the same job. So there is some options. Sometimes if they could get benefits, I could pay them less of regular wage and have more flexibility. And I think the workforce is changing such that an arbitrary 20 hours may not necessarily be it's easier in terms of managing, but I don't know if there'd be some advantage or something you could look into, whether there's some flexibility to giving more temporary employees access to health benefits.
We're happy to do, we're happy to do that. I remember clearly one of the conversations with our insurance broker. When you don't have a solid line. So if you open it up to all, it takes away or could take away some of the navigating ability to keep the premiums low for full-time employees. So we certainly, by squeezing that bubble, you don't want to impact the full-time employees and that broker budget. So that's something that that we need to really be conscientious of. Nikki, anything to add? Ms.
No, I
Macklin?
think just additionally, truly the largest hurdle when you're looking at temporary employees or employees who work less than 20 hours a week is having that regular paycheck where you can deduct those employee premiums from.
thank you, Ms. Macklin. Anyone else? Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And I disagree. I'm gonna disagree a little bit with some of what I'm hearing up here because I'm struggling with this one where the cost of the compensation is actually greater than the from a healthcare benefit is actually greater than the compensation that we receive sitting up here in council. And I'm still under the previous rate because we cannot give ourselves a raise. And not everyone is. Healthcare benefits is not the only thing that people are looking at. If you know, across the board, there might be the greatest need of some, but others is going to be something different. That could be a hurdle to entering the workforce. So I do not see offering this benefit is going to all of a sudden bring individuals into the race, you know, and be able to run because they have this ability if they win to get healthcare, because this is something that's a very part-time piece. And I'm at the same time, I definitely hear Councilmember Ward and others where this is a hindrance. It all depends on your own circumstances. Some of us have someone who, you know, either we have the job that has the insurance benefits or we can rely on a spouse that has the insurance benefits. So I'm just hoping that there's an in between, something where maybe it's not the full that full compensation amount, that there is an option. I would like to see if there's any other options we can consider that isn't you know, either all or nothing. And I also hear this, it would be great if everybody could have health insurance for less hours, but it is really, really hard to set. If we're looking at equity, when somebody's working 40 hours a week or they're 30 plus hours a week and they're getting these benefits, and we're being very generous at 20 hours, because it's like, as you're working less and less hours, you're not actually the benefit they're giving to the city is not the same as the full-time employee. So I'm kind of struggling as we're having this discussion. So I just want to throw that out there. I definitely hear those that desperately need this health insurance benefit, but I also kind of feel it becomes unfair to those that are working full time. So I just want to throw that different perspective out there. And what direction are we, I guess, what direction are you looking for from us right now is, I guess, maybe would be good to know too. So thank you.
Councilmember Lim.
Yes, I see healthcare as a basic healthcare insurance as a basic need in our society. And I see that we should want every council member to be able to guarantee that their healthcare, they have healthcare access. There, in the situation with Council Member Ward, I understand the difficulty of having multiple part-time jobs and not having access to healthcare in our current healthcare system. And he's a young person. It's a little different situation when you have to go out to the marketplace and you have pre-existing conditions. So I would not want to prohibit those who have part-time jobs and have a major hurdle in accessing affordable health care from running for council. So I am in favor of forwarding this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to go off question real quick. Does anybody know off the top of the head what our population was in 2001? When we became a city county?
Fun fact,
Was it 33 or was it
25,
25,000?
So a third of what we are now,
correct.
more than, less than a third. All right. So I guess off topic of this particular subject is something that I think we need to move forward with. I definitely support moving forward with it, obviously. But to echo the mayor and Councilmember Schaaf's comments, I do think that it is past time to start looking at revisiting our governance structure to whether or not we want to be a smaller body, but that is full time. Because we are county commissioners in practice and we are missing out on the time that it takes to do that job. There are many meetings that we miss out on because we just can't take the time off work, or some of us, have to do other things. So I think that's definitely something we should move forward with. On the charter review committee or whatever we're calling it, do we know the timeline for that? Because anything that they put forward has to go to the ballot. So
It's coming to council for an overview and the structure and the timeline on September 27th.
I guess my question is, do you think that the recommendations from that committee will be done with sufficient time to be on the 2023 ballot?
That's it depends on the efficiency of the and how many topics there are. And
yeah, my only concern is that we have already discussed about putting potential tax measures on the 2024 ballot. And I think to muddy it up with charter amendments would also be maybe too much. So if there's any way to get it on, any charter amendments to be on 2023, that might, I don't know, would be my recommendation, but I don't know.
well, we can certainly talk more about that on the 27th.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I really don't think that could happen. I think it would have to be the 2024. The charter is kind of a voluminous document, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a
All right.
quick.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, let's go to Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. One quick question. Do we have a premium difference between part-time classified employees and full-time classified employees?
No, all benefits eligible employees have the same premium contribution.
And is that just a decision the city and county decided to make? Okay. That's my only question. And then to, I guess, kind of counter Councilmember Anderson's points about the contributions part-time employees make versus full-time employees make. I don't really think there is you can arbitrarily place that value, because we do have some jobs that we don't need full-time employees to do that kind of work, but they are still essential for the running of the city and county. I mean, lifeguarding comes to mind. I don't think we typically employ a full-time lifeguard, but we still provide a very beneficial service to the city and county. And I think to just arbitrarily say potentially someone is not contributing as much as a full-time employee because of the type of work they do should be rethought. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Councilmember Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to also raise the questions about the optics of doing this, about the benefit of doing this, about trying to solve problems that are frankly national in scope around healthcare. We have a terrible system in this country. I don't think that our trying to solve it for ourselves is going to be well received in the larger public as an indicator that we're concerned about the entire healthcare program in our country. So I'm also have a lot of questions, a lot of doubts about this this initiative. So I just wanted to put that on the table. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other council member comments or questions? Councilmember Shaw?
I always come back to this, direction and making sure that staff's on the same page as council. So I'm wondering at this point if staff has gotten the direction that they need or if there's further direction that staff needs. So I'll put that as my first question.
Well, direction to look into cost hurdles and possible implications of opening it up completely, health benefits. It sounds like we are moving forward. Just from our straw, we keep chits up here on where everybody is. That this is an item that the majority of council wants to move forward with.
That's true.
So Councilmember Shaft, there, for council, there would be an ordinance that we would need to draft so we could codify it. And then having the bigger discussion on some of the questions that Councilmember Cohen and other council members raised. But we would get that calendared whenever council's agenda allows it. I don't think we would plan on coming back for another study session. So the next time we talk about this would be first reading of that ordinance.
And what do you, what's the guess in terms of timing on that first reading of that ordinance?
Our handy dandy all keeper of all calendars, Ms. Yeoman.
While you're looking, is everybody pretty much in agreement that we will follow the advice and have it, if it's approved, it would be available for future terms? Okay, so that's unanimous.
And that helps slightly with the timing.
Yes.
Because we could do first reading
12/6.
12/6 and second reading in January. And that would then the effective date of the ordinance, albeit in February, would start when we get new council members in after the November election.
Not till after November 2023.
2023, thank
Right.
you.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Do you need any other info, Ms. Macklin, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Thank you so much, Ms. Macklin and Ms. Rogers.
Want to give a shout out to Pat Gilbert too.
Oh, there she is.
Got in
Hi,
touch with a
thank
lot
you,
of our
Ms.
city attorney
Gilbert.
friends and
You're
Jen
out back there
Hoffman,
quietly.
who got
just-
in touch with our city manager friends to help us with some of that data too.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. So that concludes the agenda items for this evening's study session. There being no further business, the study session